Somebody has to do
Yeah, you're the vice. Look at you. Congratulations.
All I can say is thank God this wasn't last week. The board met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss matters of litigation and personnel. We'll start off with public comments. Anybody in the public have a comment? Come on up to the podium and just state. Oh, yeah. So you all know the drill. State your name and your address and
Hi,
give it
Mark.
to us.
Hi, Mark Schaefer, 23 Brookline Court. And, as you know, I'm chair of the EAC, but I'm also a board member at West Trails. And this has, I'm not going to talk anything about the cell phone tower, but just want to say and put on the public record, last month, Mimi came to the Board of Supervisors meeting and conducted herself as a complete professional and represented this township extremely well. She was put in a very difficult position in the middle of the board in a fishbowl arrangement, came in, was jovial, polite, answered everybody's questions, and again, conducted herself as a complete professional. I just want that to go on the record. Thank you.
very much.
Yay.
We're fond of her.
We seldom get positive.
Yeah, the positive.
So I guess we are kind of like the same topic here. Because I also wanted to talk about Penland Woods and the cell tower. So last month, I had-
Just state your name and address for the record.
Carol Jones.
Your
Carol Jones,
reputation procedure.
390 Mansion Avenue in Penland. So last month I had attended the Montgomery County Open Space Board meeting. And there were a couple reasons why I actually decided to go over there to the meeting. The first one is that I did want to mention or just talk about the need that we had for the cell towers. And I know we've done it again, but I never did it in front of them. So in our community, the cell phone companies have told us that we live in bubbles or bowls or whatever, because for years we don't have service. At any given time, we can be on the phone in our home, the service is dropped, or we're running around the house saying, do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? We're outside the door, we're all around. So the inconvenience is there. Also, and it's a service that you pay for that you don't get. But even more than that, we're really concerned about emergencies. And I was explaining to them that in my home alone, in the last 8 years, I had 2 times where I had to dial 911. And if I have 2 landlines in my house, I might be a dinosaur, but I have 2 landlines still in my home, but I will always keep a landline in for emergency purposes. And if I had relied on the cell phone while they're trying to instruct me how to do CPR, we could have had problems there. And I just don't want that, happening to anybody else. So it is really, the cell phone service is really necessary in the neighborhood. I just don't know any other way besides a tower. I'm not technical. I mean, if you can do something else besides a tower, I'd be great. I know the township has looked at different places to put that, and Penland Woods, although, I'll talk about the open space and how important it is to all of us. It's a matter of a necessity for safety reasons right now, putting the cell tower there. So I wanted to talk to them about the cell tower. The next thing that I really wanted to talk about is the rumor that I had heard that they wanted to, someone suggested that they knock down a home and why don't they knock down a home and put up a cell tower there? And they actually pointed to my uncle's home that has been in my family for over 100 years. It was my great-grandfather's home. My uncle still lives in it. He might be walking in here because I told him we were coming, so. He was really upset that they would even think that somebody would even say that. And he just wants you guys to assure him that nobody is going to knock down his home to put up a cell tower. So that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about. And the other thing is that when I went on the township website, I was saying about the no change of use, no change of use, no change of use. So I didn't know whether I was going to hear about that, but either I was in the wrong meeting or I'm just late or I didn't. So that didn't come up much. So What did come up though in the meeting was, which I was maybe shocked because I didn't know, because I left the meeting a little angry and a little confused. Angry, one was when um, the gentleman was trying to explain why there was a gentleman that did raise his hand and says, I'm the one that said knock down the cell tower. And I'm here and he's right there. But online, they're saying no one said it. No one said on the Zoom meeting. The meeting was also on Zoom. They were saying that I was misinformed. Nobody said that, while he's trying to explain it to me. So once he started speaking and I said, why would you say something like that? The solicitor, cut him off. So that was the end of that. But I just wanted to make sure that no one else on that board thought it was a good idea, was a suggestion, to do anything like that. But we didn't get that far. Because they actually stopped it. And then to hear when they were the board. Now, maybe you can explain to me what the vote was with the open space, because what my perception was that they would go to the commissioners and say that they were okay, they would recommend, or that they were okay building a cell tower under conditions that were put on them by Wissahickon Trails or Wissahickon Valley Watershed. And at that point, I was like, what are we talking about here? Where are conditions coming from? Because I don't know anything about this. Where are conditions coming from? I wasn't even asking yet what conditions, because I wasn't listening. I wasn't worried about what conditions at that point. As a matter of fact, I just did my right to know yesterday, because I'm thinking, well, I might as well look at what conditions that they were even talking about. But I was really surprised about these conditions. So also, I was a little razzled then, but the next day I also got a call from a friend of mine that's also on the board at, if I say Watershed or Wissahickon Trails, I mean Wissahickon Trails, I guess. So I might be mixing it all up. But they were on the board. It's been we've known them for a while, and they were calling to see if I would participate in another program. But of course, because it was the day after this meeting and they were also on the meeting, the issue of the cell tower came up. And what they were telling me is that the watershed, the Wissahickon Trails, is not objecting to a cell phone tower, but that they wanted, wanted the township to agree to these conditions. So if they weren't objecting to a cell tower, why are they even involved in this right now? That was my big question. I have no idea what would make the watershed come out now and get involved in this issue. At that point, I started thinking, oh my God, they're using the cell phone tower as leverage, or, making us hostage over here, to get a cell phone here for some kind of conditions, probably some conditions that should have been aired out 30 plus years ago. So I don't even know what they are, but I can imagine it's something that should have been discussed years ago. Now, the Wissahickon Trails, Wissahickon Valley Watershed was very instrumental in saving Penland Woods. I would say that from the very beginning. When in the 1970s, here I go. I wrote down so I wouldn't get talking for a long time. But in the 1970s, we were up in the woods. We were in the woods all the time. I'm a resident of Penland, been there for my whole life, my father's whole life, my grandfather, over 100 years we've been in Penland. As a matter of fact, my great-grandchild is now the 7th generation that we have living in the village. So 7 generations, long time. So we know the woods. We've been in the woods. We camped in the woods. There was a rifle range in the woods where we used to go shooting on Sunday. I mean, everything happened in the woods. As a matter of fact, the part of the land that is now owned by the water company used to belong to Penland. They sold it to the water company. So, it's always been an extension to the neighborhood, and something that we always knew and understand how important the woods to us. So I just wanted to go a little bit back. So back in the 1970s, when Mr. Ingersoll first told us that the land was going up for auction. So we knew at that point that even didn't matter how much it was going up for auction for, my family wasn't paying for it. So what happened was my father started going around to different organizations or places that he thought might listen. First was the township supervisors. They weren't interested. They said they didn't have the money to buy the property. They weren't interested in it at all. Although that's what the Ingersoll family would have preferred to leave it for open space. So now, when the land went up for auction back in 30 plus years ago, it was both sides of the track. It was Polo Club Estate and the 77 acres that's now Penland Woods. It was all combined. And the land went for under $250,000 both sides of the track, which, it was gone at that point. The township ended up paying a whole lot more money than $250,000. So as we saw that the developer built Polo Club Estates, I think that's the name of it, Polo Club Estates, Hunt Seat, whatever. As they built that, we knew that the other side was. And then when they came in and, showed the township they were interested in building over there, is when we really said, oh my God, we know what's going to happen. They wanted 104 houses built back there. And Penland neighborhood, there's no way in the world that our neighborhood could have sustained that. We are 2 blocks by 2 blocks in the neighborhood, and then a little circle, which we call the New Road, where I live is actually the New Road. It was a field when I was a kid. So we call that the New Road. But when the land was actually sold, and then finally we talked to the North Wales Water Authority, we had talked to Wissahickon Trails. Wissahickon Trails was very interested in it. At the time, they had a new executive director, Dave Frolick, came in, and I'm gonna tell you, they really worked hard. They organized, they put out money for flyers. I even bought my, what is it? A scrapbook with me, with all this stuff there in it. And they helped us organize. But what I wanted to say is, I can't understand how they're involved in this right now, because if it were not for the supervisors at that time, we wouldn't have Penland Woods. Their lives were threatened. They spent tons of hours. They busted their butt. Lower Gwinnett Township put lots of money into it. Outside citizens put lots of money into it. We went door to door. We had fish fries. Horse race got involved. Lower Gwinnett baseball got involved. People that wanted to hike got involved. People who never even knew where Penland Woods was, finally got involved in this. So it was a big, huge community effort. I was part of the Save Penland Woods committee. We had over 200 people members on that committee. I also was with the Save Penland Woods Inc., which we had to incorporate so that we could start raising money to help pay for lawyer fees. Even the township's lawyer fees, we ended up contributing to with the Penland Woods Inc. And then I was on the board of director of North Wales Water Authority at that point. So I was really familiar with the things that were going around in the township and what was happening as we were trying to condemn the property. But our supervisors could have definitely even quit after we failed in the condemnation for the first time. And then they had to decide whether to go back and do it again. But they knew they had the support of everybody. So here we are now. And you probably know our neighborhood, but here we are now once again talking about Penland Woods and saving people's lives. When it was going to be developed, when I said there was only 2 streets by 2 streets coming in and out, you guys probably know where the entrance was, the only entrance that the property owner had. You know where Mrs. Moore's house is with the tree? Right past that is the only entrance that they had. And then they had to cross the Willow Run to be able to, so they had to go up the block, down the block, past the playground with 104 homes to do that. And the township knew how bad that would be and how that would just devastate a community. We don't even have street lights, we don't have sidewalks out there. It was not a type of neighborhood to be for development. So a lot of people got involved in that to be able to save the development. So maybe there's 2 things. One, you can tell me what that vote said actually. And the other, and I was concerned that if, let's say that you did agree to whatever some kind of conditions were, if you said something with the conditions, what happens if now we get to the courts and they say no to the cell tower? Does that mean you already made some kind of agreement with with, with someone about the property. So I don't even know how long the letter that they were talking about was or the conditions, but maybe somebody can be able to tell me about, those conditions and why the watershed is involved, why Trails is even involved in this, because the way that I see it, no conditions, I didn't even look at them yet, no conditions should be attached to this cell phone. If that's a separate issue, whatever the conditions or something that they want to from Lower Gwinnett or from the people of Lower Gwinnett, I don't know how it got attached to a cell phone tower and the need for a cell phone tower. So maybe you can help me with that.
All right, so, thank you. I'll let our manager talk about what the open space board meeting, what was decided. I'm not entirely sure what we can talk about and what we can't talk about as far as the conditions and our response to the conditions. The one thing I will say is we hear you and believe in us.
I do.
Okay?
I do. Like I said, I'm here. I haven't even seen the conditions, but that wasn't
Yeah,
even,
we believe me,
That was
we
not
under,
the
we
issue.
we understand your concern 100%. So,
Thank
Ms. Gleason will tell you about the meeting. And
So-
whatever else our solicitor says she can tell you.
All right, well, first I want to say, Ms. Jones, you spoke eloquently and powerfully at the Open Space Board meeting. Thank you very much for what you said. I was thrilled and cheering you on. Mhm. And so their recommendation was that the commissioners agree to approve the change in use allowing a cell tower in Penland Woods Park because the county has a restrictive covenant on the property because of grant money they gave for the acquisition. So the Open Space Board was saying to the commissioners, we recommend that you approve the change of use to allow the cell tower with the condition that Lower Gwinnett accept all of the terms in a letter that Wissahickon Trails had sent to the township pretty much asking for changes to the conservation easement. That the township agreed to make sure there are terms that would require that the cell tower be removed down the road, assuming it all gets approved and it's installed. If it's no longer needed, that it would be removed. It wouldn't remain in the park. So those were the two conditions they were placing on their recommendation for the commissioner's approval. I'll let the
I think
solicitor
that's
say
as
something.
far as we can go.
Okay. Well, I'm just here to say.
We hear,
The conditions are.
we hear you.
What the
We hear
conditions
you. We absolutely hear you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for coming and for speaking up and on behalf of the community. I know, but we need you here.
I have a question about that. So Neil, is the vote that they took, is that not in the public domain?
It is in the public domain.
So Carol, it should be in the public domain,
No, there wasn't anything in writing that was given to, they were just communicating, I think, the terms, other than Wissahickon Trails letter, which they clearly had seen. So their vote will be in their minutes when they're approved, but that won't be until the next open space board meeting. Will those minutes become publicly
Okay,
available?
so
So
they
as
didn't
far
have
as
to
I
be
know,
worked
there
out.
aren't any documents out there that are publicly available from the Montgomery County Open Space Board.
so, but Carol would be able to see in the minutes, once they're approved, what they put in the minutes concerning that
They
meeting.
won't have the terms from that
They
letter.
won't.
They won't have the exact terms.
That's it.
They were making a recommendation.
Yep.
Based on a condition.
We were confused by that too.
Good
Hi,
evening.
Good evening.
My name is Leisha Jett. I live at 1137 Wissahickon Avenue in Penland. I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that Carol said. Yes, we do need a tower. My calls are still dropping. I've had to run out to the middle of Wissahickon Avenue to get a call or make a call. I've had to lean out the window of my house to receive a call or to get a call on my cell phone. I've switched cell phone carriers so many times, and when I complained to the carriers, I was told we're either on the line, we're on the cusp of where cell phone service can reach us, but they don't really have any control over that. So I just wanted to say that, we really do need the service. I too have a landline because of emergency services, um, in case I need to call somebody in an emergency and my cell phone doesn't work or the call drops. The house that they suggested be torn down, the person who suggested that obviously has not been to the village, because that would put that cell tower in my backyard and tear down my great-grandfather's house. I don't understand why anybody would say something like that without having been through the township to look at things. There are houses that go past that house. So if you were going to tear something down to put in a tower, that would not be the place to do it. So once again, and I don't know why there are conditions placed on a tower, because to me, that seems ridiculous. We only want the tower because it's a need, it's a necessity in the village. Anything else should be a whole separate issue. And it should be voted on as a separate issue, and it should be brought to the board as a separate issue. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you. And we all agree that there's a real need for cell service in the township. And like Ms. Jones, the only way I know how to get cell service is with tower. So come on up.
Just one point of clarity too, since we were talking about how this works. So the Montgomery County Open Space Board made a recommendation to the county commissioners. It's the county commissioners' decision that matters in all of this. All the Open Space Board was doing was making a recommendation. The county commissioners can accept that recommendation. They can come up with their own decision or modify that recommendation. So it's the county commissioners' decision that's very important here. And we don't know yet which meeting that will be discussed at yet, which Montgomery County Commissioners meeting that will take place at.
And just for clarification, and someone stop me if I'm wrong, the commissioners don't have the authority to approve or deny the cell phone tower. If they allow us to go forward, we still have to petition the Court of Common Pleas to allow the cell phone tower. So this is like step one in a long journey. Actually, it's probably step 7 and I'm really going. Yeah,
I'd say like maybe step 3.
yeah, maybe step. Government moves
But
slow,
yeah, it's,
very glacial. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
To suggest to tear down my house.
Could you just give us your name and address? please?
I'm Nelson Stewart, 1142 Trewellen Avenue.
Sir.
Now, I heard they suggested tear down my house.
Not me, sir.
Well, I didn't say you, I didn't say who. But I'd be ready to go to jail. You try to tear my house down.
I certainly
We're
understand.
not coming
sir.
for your house.
Now, some of our people took us down the drain. The park down there was dedicated to Penland. Judge Knight dedicated to. It's gone. People didn't have nothing to do with it. Some of our other generation that had a club, they sold it to the water company. So we lost that. But I will fight until I can't fight no more if you try to tear my house down.
Stand right next to you, sir.
See, and they made my grandfather and them take the sewer line through our driveway to keep from going down to Park Avenue, but they still put it in there. So we still getting hit on the chin. I ain't taking too many hits. I'm getting old. But I don't mind fighting.
Understood.
You okay?
Thank you.
That's all I got to say.
Appreciate you.
Have a good day.
Is there any additional public comment on items
Welcome back, Madam Chair.
They're not on the agenda. Thank you, ma'am. Anybody online? No? Okay. Okay, so next up, we have the review of our zoning hearing board application for 821 North Bethlehem Pike and 901, 911 North Bethlehem Pike, and to determine action to be taken, if any. Previously, the board did vote related to 821 at our February 25th Board of Supervisor meeting. No, wait a minute. At the February 25th Board of Supervisor meeting, we received a presentation related to the pending application for 821 North Bethlehem Pike. The subject parcel is located in a D business district and contains a retail strip along Bethlehem Pike with garage structures in the rear. The tenant is operating a rental car business, and they explained their business and gave us a lot of detail about how it operates. We previously did vote to formally oppose this application at a prior meeting. This is just on the agenda to determine if the Board of Supervisors would like to have discussion around modifying our position related to this application. I don't know, and it really, it's just here to, I guess, reaffirm or to open up for public discussion, any concerns, questions, discussion points, comments related to this application that's going in front of the zoning hearing board. Again, we did already formally vote to oppose this application and to send our solicitor. Does anyone have any discussion points from the board? Any discussion points from the public? Very good. Next up is 901, 911 North Bethlehem Pike. What was submitted was an amended application to the zoning hearing board, and this is the Volvo parking lot. It is challenging the township's interpretation that cars cannot be parked on the subject parking lot, or in the alternative they are requesting a variance to park cars not associated with the building surrounding the lot on that lot. This matter will be discussed at the this is discussed today to determine whether we want to send our solicitor in formal opposition of this application. I think the memo that was included in our board packet outlined that we would discuss it. So again, 901 to 911 North Bethlehem Pike. Currently, cars are being parked there that are not associated with the buildings that are surrounding the lot, on the lot. I don't know if we can bring it up to show, or should we bring it up to show? What it looks like or where it is.
My understanding is the lot was put in place as an ancillary use for the buildings. That's how it was approved, and that's the purpose of it. They no longer want to use it for the building, and they want to use it as a parking lot for Volvo cars. They have to get approval for that, and I would argue that that's not something that we would want to approve. That's not the type of use we would want on Bethlehem Pike. I would ask that our solicitor oppose.
Anyone else?
I agree. I would second that if that's a motion.
I think it was a discussion point. I agree as well. I don't know if you were making it as a motion.
No, I would like to hear if there's any other folks. I'm
Objection.
happy to make it as a motion.
I
Any
think the
other-
basis for sending our solicitor on the prior application is very similar.
It would be being consistent.
Are there, in the new comprehensive plan, are there any additional, space, lots or interest in expanding, what Mike's gonna say, the, ability for people to have a business with cars? So is that something the township is, considering that we want to, limit to the current status of Bethlehem Pike?
The comprehensive plan, I don't recall anything in the comprehensive plan that provides for Bethlehem Pike to be, have a use that allows for automobile dealerships other than the existing Bergies, rental car place as the proposed Toro essentially is, or anything like that. That's not the vision that the comp plan steering committee has been discussing for Bethlehem Pike, and I don't recall any person in any of our open houses saying that that's what they'd like to see on Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
would agree.
So with that in mind, then I would also be opposed to having the Volvos parking there.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Mr. Twersky, do you want to make the motion?
Sure, I move to authorize our solicitor to oppose the application for 901 to 911 North Bethlehem Pike for the zoning hearing.
Second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is consideration of moving forward surrounding a complaint for 800 Norristown Road. In our board packet, wait a minute, I don't know if there is anything in our, there isn't anything in our board packet. You want to give us any background? Does anyone want to give us background? Jamie, you want to give us any background?
Sure. We have, what's before you is to file a formal complaint against the property at 800 Norristown Road for a zoning violation for conducting a dog rescue operation that is not permitted under the zoning code, and also following an incident authorizing the complaint to be filed because of a nuisance.
And this has been going on for quite a while.
Yeah, this, we were made aware of it back in August. So we followed the violation process, and the applicant or the resident had the opportunity to file a zoning hearing board application. We received notification that they did not wish to do that and that they would cease the operation. But then we learned that it continued, and this is where we are today, once we knew about it continuing.
Approximately, do we know when the operations, I guess, continued, or did they ever actually cease?
I don't think that they actually ceased. We were under the impression that they were transitioning into a different type of dog care. But that was basically coming through the dog warden. But we never got confirmation, other than the letter in writing, that was their intention, was to cease the operation.
We've continued to receive complaints from neighbors related to this.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, one of our officers was bitten by a dog that is at that property location.
Yes.
We don't allow this use in the township kennels, correct?
We don't allow this, kennel is not permitted by right in a residential zoning district, which is where this is located, and it's allowed, it's only permitted by conditional use in the D business district.
And the property where this unauthorized kennel is being operated is immediately adjacent to one of the senior centers in town?
Yes.
And those residents there expressed concern about it?
Yes, we were contacted by the executive director on numerous occasions.
And I think one of the things that we'll seek also is immediate injunctive relief, that this be stopped immediately.
Yes.
Just to also, I guess, state that this property also abuts one of our trails
That's
in the
correct.
town.
Mhm.
Any questions, concerns, discussion from the board? Any questions, concerns, comments from the public? Seeing none, so we have before us the consideration of us sending or having our solicitor file a complaint for 800 Norristown Road. I'd like to make a motion to have our solicitor file that complaint. Is there a second?
Is it, I'm sorry, just a complaint in motion for injunctive relief?
With the Court of Common Pleas.
With the court as opposed to the magistrate. With the court, I'll rephrase it. We would like our solicitor to file a complaint or authorizing our solicitor to file a complaint with the Court of Common Pleas for 800 Norristown Road in relation to them operating a dog kennel.
Right, and motion for injunctive relief.
And
with the
injunctive
complaint.
relief.
Yep,
Is there a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Next up is the consideration and discussion of the authorization of the EAC to plan for a community conversation. I think I'll turn it over to Sandy.
Hi, Danielle. Thank you, everybody. So a year ago, the EAC met with the Board of Supervisors and we discussed a long-range plan. And part of that long-range plan, there was a lot of facets to it. And the EAC was tasked with looking at and researching strategies to look at for single-use plastics. They were asked to look for input from businesses and from residents, and to look at what education we can provide for the public and for the businesses as well. So in order for us to feel as though they were meeting some of these criterias, the EAC had somebody from Penn Environment speak at one of their meetings last year, and I think it was a good educational experience for the EAC and everybody involved, so that they could actually hear from somebody in the environmental world who was talking about the impacts that single-use plastics has on the environment and plastics in general. The EAC now feels as though they are in a position to engage with the entire community, being the business community and also the residents, in conducting a community conversation like you guys have done in the past. And I believe you guys have actually had great success with that. And having a conversation now before, we get too far into things. So we feel as though that a community conversation will foster an open discussion and education on the environmental impacts of plastics. It'll discuss the potential, we'll also look at the policies and alternatives for businesses and also for the residents, and to gather ideas and feedbacks for future plastics reduction initiatives. So what you guys have in front of you, Jamie, if you could scroll down a little bit, please, thank you, is that we're looking to have a community conversation here, having tabled events with professionals to talk about the environmental impacts of plastic bags. We do have people lined up to man that table and to be able to answer the questions that you have in front of you. We're also looking at bringing in representatives from neighboring municipalities who can talk about the policies, regulations, and how that the townships are enforcing any of these regulations. And also looking to invite the Chamber of Commerce or anybody from the Business Association to look at the business perspective and how a single-use plastics would affect a business within the township, and even looking at alternatives. And then the last thing would be, the EAC being able to engage with the community members who attend, including businesses, so that they can actually have a conversation with people so that we can talk about, how it would affect the business, how it would affect residents, and also the environment. And then we also then have a tally table at the end, having two types of surveys, one for residents and one for businesses, that if you're a business owner, you can answer that survey. If you're a resident, you can answer that part of the survey. With the idea is, obviously moving forward, we don't know, what how many people would actually come out, but we're also looking at, various things for a roadmap, being able to listen to the businesses, being able to listen to the residents, maybe we need to do more community education. Maybe we need to, have some more speakers come in from Penn Environment or Beyond Plastics, to actually sit down and have speaker engagement, engaged events with the public. In addition, you as the supervisors, once we gather that information, you actually may also recommend that we do more community education, encouraging more use of recycled plastic, or going when you go to the grocery store, using something other than a plastic bag. And also, you guys may actually say that, you might want to engage with the entire community doing a community survey for this. So, but we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence in investigating everything, down from, a dental office that whenever they give out their little goodie bags at the end, that's a plastic bag. Looking at, Giant, looking at Whole Foods, looking at everybody across the township, and also how it would affect the businesses.
When will the EAC be in a position to make a recommendation? I mean, because these are all great points.
Mhm.
But this is an issue that we've been asking about for a long time, and truthfully, honestly, we're really behind. If the
Yes.
issue is we're gonna keep plastic bags, then that's fine.
Mhm.
But let's make a decision.
Well, I think with this conversation, we'll gain a lot of feedback from the people who do attend. That'll be number one. And then I think from there, I think the EAC will actually be able to have a plan going forward. If you look at last year, and just so you're aware, Mike, is this year the EAC has actually changed up how they're doing some of their meetings. So we're having one regular meeting, and then we're actually having workshop meetings. So it's one topic for that night, so the entire EAC can have a good, healthy conversation, not just spending 2 or 3 minutes on a certain subject matter. So in the last meeting they had in February, it was the most thorough discussion with regards to single-use plastics that I have seen the EAC have. So their time and their dedication at last month's meeting was very thought-provoking. It was very thorough, and I think that they're in a position now that they can have a community conversation and get some feedback.
And just to be clear, from what I heard, it's not limited to this one conversation on Wednesday, April 9th. There is the potential to have additional or see if
Yes.
additional community engagement is needed, to see if different education is needed, and so that they could build upon this. So we're getting to the answer. I think we have to start to have the conversation and engage with the public and be able to extract where we are before we can fully get to the
We're gonna
answer.
wind up with a small, listen, I'm for the community conversation, obviously. I think it's a great idea. Just keep in mind, it will be a minute segment of the community. It will
Yes.
be a ridiculously small minority. You will have people who certainly have a strong opinion one way or the other.
Mhm.
It will not necessarily be indicative of what the township as a whole believes. So I'm for this, but I want to get to when the EAC makes a recommendation so that the board can make a decision.
But if this is part of their due diligence.
I
Yes.
understand that. I get it. I understand. I'm
Mhm.
just, I want everyone to be mindful because we've been discussing this for a while. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Mark?
I know it's not for a lack of effort. I know that.
Yeah,
I'm grateful for all the hard work you've done. I'm just frustrated because I hear from people, Montgomery Township did this. Ambler did, I feel like we're so far, we're just behind and it's not,
Yeah.
it's not anybody's fault. I just want to move forward.
I just want to say, if you wanted a recommendation, I think if you polled the EAC, we recommend a plastic bag ban tomorrow.
Okay.
But we also know that there's a segment of the community, the business community, that is not for that. One of the members of one of the restaurant owners came to one of our meetings and just walked in and said, "Are you talking about plastic bags?" And she took over my meeting for 15 minutes. Maybe I pissed her off because she was taking over my meeting, but at that point I realized, we have to be sure we're cognizant of everybody. I don't want to put you in a position that we say ban it and then you start catching flack. We're here to be sure that if anybody says, well, how did you come to that decision? We could say, we had the community conversation. We did this. We did our homework. We did the proper process. Yes, it's slow and frustrating, and we apologize for that. We're often doing other things. We're giving away trees and we're collecting batteries.
You're
all
doing
this other
great
stuff.
work. I'm not,
So-
and honestly, it wouldn't be a day of the week that ended in a Y if people didn't complain about what we did.
Yeah. of course.
So it
And-
won't matter whatever we do, whether we authorize a ban, whether we don't authorize a ban, people will be upset with us.
Yeah, and again, so we're just trying to be sure we have a process that,
They're
looking
transparent.
back, we can say this is very transparent.
Mhm.
Everybody had their opportunity to speak.
And
If you
will
didn't
be-
show up, don't look at us,
Yeah.
right? And we hope if you approve this, that we'll kind of push this through the media and our newsletters, so anybody who thinks they should show up will show up. Yes, it will be a small fraction, we understand. But
It's all we can do, and I
That's what we can
understand,
do.
exactly. Perfect.
The only question I had was, do we think that there's enough time between now and April 9th to get the word out to people?
So the staff, and actually Ree has done a lot of, there's actually been a lot of footwork being done since the last EAC meeting, knowing that we were coming in front of the Board of Supervisors. So John and I have actually been working on some surveys. I know Ree has been in contact with different people who would be manning the tables. So we feel as though we're in a position that we can move forward with this.
Great.
So the amount of footwork that we have been doing in the last month has been tremendous.
So I have a question. I like your plan with the tables, talking to the community. At the end of it, you're going to tally what exactly?
So there's going to be a survey that is for the businesses. So how a plastic bag ban, or whether it be plasticware, styrofoams, plastic on, containers, whatever, is how it's going to affect a business, how residents. So we're going to have, just like we did with the, and Danielle and Tessie, you guys remember this, with the Park and Recreation Board, how they were tasked with doing a survey, back in 2020. And we went through the process, we went through all the things, and now we have amazing park master plans, right? So we're trying to do the same thing in doing our research, reaching out to the businesses and the residents so that they can come in and have an input, not just the EAC coming through and being like, hey, let's do a plastic bag ban, and you guys saying yes and everybody hating everybody, or loving everybody. But taking all, we have to do our due diligence, and we have to be transparent in
Yeah.
everything we're doing.
No, and I appreciate that. What I'm trying to understand is, how is the EAC going to take all the input you're going to get and come up with one recommendation? Or maybe you're not going to do that. You're just going to report the input that you get.
So the EAC, with the information that they gain that evening, they're going to reconvene at their May meeting, and they will discuss the things that they heard throughout the night and what people filled out in that survey. And then they're going to take it and they're going to analyze it. There might be people that are like, the restaurants and the businesses are doing their best, and they have moved to a more eco-friendly, sustainable resources that they're using within the restaurants. There might be residents that are like, look, you know what, I bring my bag with me everywhere I go. So I think it's taking the temperature of the people that come out, and then for the EAC to, again, determine what the best, path to take for them would be.
Okay.
I just want to let you know too, Ree Monahan, I've been reaching out to a lot of entities, environmental organizations, also municipal staff, as well as EAC members. And what's nice is a lot of people that will be attending the open house, including township staff, have worked directly with the businesses. So they have a full picture perspective of the issues and working with the businesses. And to your point, many of our surrounding neighborhood municipalities have approved a ban. It doesn't mean it's strictly one ban, one single-use plastic. They can look at other items too. And just my conversations with a lot of these municipal representatives, it took a while to get there, but everyone is so enthusiastic, including the business owners. So we're hoping that this is, to Sandy's point, the first step, and reaching out and getting that communication started, and then moving forward.
So you
I'm
guys will
encouraged.
conduct all this research, and at
Correct.
some point in the super near future, you will report back to us the results of these open houses and all your investigation and make a recommendation.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much.
So consideration, so we'll be,
That comes now.
so now we have in front of us the consideration of holding that. And I don't believe there's no monetary component with this, is there?
And speakers.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
Only because
You can have the same dinner that Janine's kids have. Chicken fingers and chicken.
we can have chicken nuggets. But no, it's only that we're getting, providing dinner for the AC and the people who are tabling the events that evening.
Okay. I don't know if the board has any additional questions or comments.
Thank you all.
Does anybody online have any questions or comments?
No.
Thank you for this. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the community conversation with the EAC around single-use plastics and around single-use plastics and the eventual reduction of plastic waste. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are more than welcome to leave. Next up.
You can stick around for the exciting authorization to advertise the milling work.
We haven't voted yet.
Next,
No idea how it's gonna play out. It's a cliffhanger. The tension is palpable.
Thank you all for all your work on this.
We have before us the consideration to advertise the 2025 road and concrete programs. Do you want to talk about it, Jim? No? Okay. So in, so included in the board packet is an authorization of what locations. So the concrete program is identified on the the 4 streets with 1 alternative. The mill and overlay has 3 streets with 3 alternatives, and then the ultra-thin bonding wearing course project has 3 streets with 1 alternative. This is really just to authorize to advertise. Bids would potentially go out by March 21st, opening the 2025 road and concrete programs that will be held on April 16th, with consideration for the award not until our 2nd meeting in April. Any questions from the board? Any questions from anyone online?
No.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the advertisement of our 2025 road and concrete programs as identified and in the memo from our engineering. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Cliffhanger. Next up is a consideration for approval for CoStar's mulching contract. I think I'm going to turn this over to Fred. Give us a little bit of background about our landscaping contract.
Yes, thank you. So
Is it on?
I think so.
Oh,
We
there you
good?
go. Sorry.
Our 3-year landscaping contract is up. We had a 2-year mutual option to continue it. Unfortunately, Brightview does not want to continue the contract. So we found a CoStar's contractor who was approved close by Corbo. They're in the area. So we got a price from them, which was ridiculous for the grass
That
cutting.
3 times the amount of. what
3
we paid.
times the amount. The mulching, though, that line item was close to what we were paying Brightview. And obviously Brightview didn't want to do it again for that price, so a little bit more makes sense. So on that part, I recommend we would take the CoStar's price and have Corbo do the mulching.
What is the mulching for?
So all the flower beds around the trees in the parks, I mean, it's a lot of mulching, the playground. There's a lot of mulching.
Gotcha.
It would be either be labor intensive for us to do it or some places that mulch, and I'm not sure about Corbo. They might have a machine that actually blows the mulch. Yeah, so that's something I don't think we would want to take and do.
Fred, is it just a one-time mulch? for the
One-time
year?
mulch. It would just be this year because CoStar's is only a year-to-year contract. Unlike when we bid it, it was for 3 years. So next year, if we wanted to do it again, it would be whatever the new CoStar's price is.
Okay, but they only put mulch down one time for
One-
this whole year.
Yeah, in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And then if stuff like the playground needs a little more mulch, we take care of that.
I got
throughout
it,
the year.
okay.
So
Did Brightview not even want to give us a price?
Brightview said it would be 20 to 25% more. They're not on CoStar, so it would have had to be
Okay.
re-bid because
Okay.
it wasn't like a change order or anything. It wasn't
Okay.
close.
Will they
Um,
submit a bid? You
If,
think-
if we put it out to
I'm
bid,
saying that's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be the next-
So-
sorry.
my first thought was when Corbo gave us that price is we need to send this out to bid and get a better price. But since then, I've been looking at it a lot. Even if we paid 25% more of what we were paying Brightview, and I wrote that down somewhere. I mean, we're up to 105, 110,000 for like 20, 25% more. If we hired 2 seasonal employees at $25 an hour and supplemented that with some of our full-time guys and overtime, I mean, we'd only be up to like 83,000 a year. And it's not like we don't have other work to do, but I think the point of contracting that out was it was cheaper to contract that out so we could concentrate on other jobs. But at this price, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it,
But you think that includes, I understand it includes the 2 seasonal employees, overtime. Does
Some
it include
overtime.
Does it include?
We would have to
gas,
add some
wear and
fuel.
tear?
Yeah, we'd have to add some fuel.
Do we have the equipment?
So we're buying a new mower this year. That was already in the budget. We'll hang on to the old mower for another year. So we have that equipment. If there was a time to try it, it would be this year. 3 years ago, I would have said, we can't do it because we were shorthanded. The crew was older. Now we have younger guys who would work overtime. I'm just saying there's another way we could go if we don't want to put it out to bid again. I'm okay with bidding it and taking the price. We have plenty of other work
How
to do.
hard do you think it would be to find seasonal employees?
It would be difficult, but I think we can pay, if we pay the right amount, I think we could probably get, there's other municipalities that get retired people or college.
Yeah, I mean,
For-
I
for
did
26.
this one summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I
I'm
started.
willing to do
seasonal
it now,
employee,
honestly.
Yeah,
I prefer it to my day job.
yeah.
Can we pursue both courses, put it out for bid and look for people
I-
and sort of sketch out what it would look like?
I think that would be prudent to do.
Fred,
And
can we also look at not mowing some areas?
Absolutely, and not just not mowing, mowing less. I think when we get a contractor, they need you to guarantee that they have the work and they
Yes.
have to pay their employees.
Yeah.
If we were doing it ourselves, obviously the athletic fields need to be cut before games and manicured. But passive recreation in the park, maybe it's every other week or week and a half in between. We would have more
Absolutely.
control that way
Yeah.
over what we're cutting and what we're
And
letting
some-
grow a little
Some
thicker.
areas could be taken off the cutting schedule, I would think, maybe just once a year, but we need to understand if there are places like that little pilot area we were looking at that could be replaced with no mow, grass.
Yeah, and I don't think we should make that choice. I think the board and the Parks and Rec Committee would, if you're
Mhm.
going to turn a field into a, meadow grass, that's something
Mm.
that we want you to decide, but it's possible, yes.
Could we, and I think this is probably a Sandy question also, could we, use the Little League to help us mow the fields and sort of, I don't know if we can, I know that they always want to. I mean,
Doesn't Mitch handle?
I mean, is that something to take, I mean, those, if they take responsibility for the fields, that's a pretty big piece off the plate, and they've talked about wanting to do it.
I don't think we have an agreement with the Little League.
Well, I'm just, that's something that we could address, but I'm just saying, is that realistic? Is it feasible? Is it not?
Uh,
Tell me why it's not.
I don't think it's not feasible. They would have to take responsibility if they did any damage while they're,
Yeah, that goes.
while they're cutting, but
We'll let the lawyer deal with that.
Yeah.
But, is it, I guess.
I
is
think
it
we would have to
feasible
look.
And is it advisable?
I think we would also have to look at, we would have to determine the fields that they would be cutting. And then looking at, what are they actually cutting? Are they just cutting in the interior of the fencing? So like say Ingersoll Park, are they just doing on the interior of that fencing, or who then is going around the outskirts of everything? And then you have areas like the Talus Field, where you have the clickball players using the infield of that field, but then the outfield is being used by lacrosse. So that would maybe feel like one field that we shouldn't let them cut. So I think we would have to look at it from a field to field perspective. But then also determining like, this is where you're cutting. If there's a fenced area, you guys have to maintain the interior, and then we have to, spell out the grass height.
That to me that's the easy part. The base level question is, does it make sense for you guys? Does it seem to make sense?
So I'm going to ask you the next question then, Mike. So whenever you have a mower down at Ingersoll Park that they're using, and then you go over to Penland Woods, and just so the board is aware of the fact that Little League, Lower Gwinnett Little League and Ambler Junior Baseball Softball, they've joined forces this year for a softball program. So that Ambler Junior Baseball Softball program, they needed a field and they wanted some more players. Lower Gwinnett Little League did not have a softball program, so they merged. And we've been working on this merger for probably about a year. just to satisfy everybody's needs. So it brings softball essentially back to Laura Gwinnett. So again, it's looking at who would be mowing, and then are we going to be putting sheds in place for mowers so that Little League has access to them?
So these are all questions that we can address. I don't think we're gonna build a shed. We might as well just hire seasonal workers. But that, you know, if, I think to me, step one is Sandy and Fred, do you think this is a good idea or something worth exploring? If the answer is yes, question two is there any interest in the Little League from doing this? What fields are they interested in doing it? Inside, outside, whatever. Then we can sort of, okay, now we need 2 seasonal workers, 3 seasonal workers. I'm only asking if it's something that we should even think about.
Yeah, I think it would make total sense at Ingersoll Park. There's a garage there that the mower could be in. It's their complex, more or less. The other fields, it probably doesn't, because we would have to cut the other parts of the park
Yeah,
anyway. So we're gonna be there.
right.
We'll just cut.
I kind of was
Cut-
just thinking
cut-
about Ingersoll, and not
Yeah.
that, I mean, I know the other fields are back there, but sometimes it's out of sight.
Yeah, and we would just have to address that with Little League, that it would just be for Ingersoll Park to
Yeah, if they,
alleviate
again,
any
if
stress
they
for
want
us.
to.
It would certainly,
Take something off.
it
our
would
plate.
help us out.
Yeah.
They would,
exactly.
they would get to cut it when they want it and be responsible for it being the right height for their games. That would probably be a win-win if they were interested.
Fred, when do you actually begin, historically, when have we begun
We
cutting?
would probably start cutting end of this month, beginning of next
Oh, really?
month. So even if we put it out to bid, we're probably going to cut the
Some
grass the
portion.
first couple times,
So
which is, it's
before-
fine. We'll get it in the schedule.
So before us, we have to consider the two things, but while we're considering those two things, you could come up with potentially what could be a plan related to us handling it and what that
Sure.
would potentially look like, or do we need to vote to authorize seasonal now? Can we wait for the plan, or what would be easiest?
I think we'd be okay waiting for seasonal. But if you want to put it out for bid, I think we need authorization tonight so we can get that out as soon as possible. I'm a little concerned that
Okay,
I put us in a bad spot by not nailing this down
no,
earlier.
Well, what,
And I think landscapers may have their summer schedule
Yeah.
already set and their employees hired and
Well, we can still do
Everything
all of the
done.
aspects, it's just that we need to authorize today.
Why don't we authorize the bid? Because it doesn't mean we have to accept the bid. And we
Mhm.
can see what the going rate is now.
Mhm.
Fred can work on an alternative. I do just have one question about accepting Corbo's proposal just for mulching.
yes.
Does it make sense to package it together in the bid, and would we get better pricing, or are these typically isolated projects anyway?
Yeah, I don't think one
Okay.
has anything to do with the other. We just packaged it all together.
Yeah.
Simplification of bidding, I think.
Okay,
Have
So-
that first.
all right, I like that plan. I think.
Plus, I would like Corbo, if you approve it, to start that. Like, we would want the mulching done, like,
Yeah.
starting right away.
Right,
Yeah.
So the parks look
instead of
good.
waiting, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
And
And
it sounds
can
like
you-
you guys are gonna have to do some.
Yes,
The public
yes.
works folks are gonna have to do it for a little bit until we get this sorted.
yes, and we'll be able to handle it, and it might cause some overtime or some opportunity cost of not getting to some other things. And I think worst case, if we do take this on ourselves, we have a better idea how many hours it actually
Mhm.
takes to cut the grass, what's involved. And if it turns out we don't get other work done this year and stuff, we can always bid it again in the fall for 3 years in the future. So I think worst case, us doing it isn't that bad if we had to absorb this work.
Be a profitable sum for overtime for some of these.
Some of the guys, but I think it also could save us, the township, some money too, which
Sounds
would
like
be a
it.
benefit.
Yeah. And-
Yeah,
And can
100%.
you come back to us with an idea of places that we don't have to mow every 2 weeks or every 1 week? Because when you and I talked in the past, that, you know, for example, the circle where I live, the grass circle, we couldn't put any trees there because we had this contract to have it mowed. But now, maybe we could put some trees there and it wouldn't have to be mowed. Although at first the trees might cause more trouble than it's worth. But if you could come up with some ideas, and Sandy,
Yeah,
on places that we don't have to be as conscientious about mowing
I hate to add to the Parks and Rec agenda, but I think that's
Yeah,
something.
so that's what I was just gonna say. Kathy and I were just discussing, obviously Kathy Morris is the chair of the Park and Recreation Board. She is in the audience. She and I were just talking about areas that we can look at within the parks that that it's not gonna affect field play. It's not gonna affect anybody coming through. So we can. put that on-
Beautiful,
Since we do
beautiful.
have a meeting coming up, we can put that on the agenda for us to discuss and take field trips.
That, I would love that. That would,
Hey,
Looking at the trails, looking at the ponds.
I
Yeah.
think the EAC would be happy with that also. Good, thanks, Fred.
Thank you,
Okay,
Fred.
so we
Okay,
have-
so we'll, oh, go ahead.
So we have
So
considerations.
just
Is there any?
one more because you had asked about whether it's worth doing both. I do think it makes sense because if we want to be able to consider the option of whether to hire summer help or accept the bid, we should start looking now for
Mhm.
people. We don't want to wait till the end of April, beginning of May. The bids come in high and then start looking. So if you're all right, we'll look at both. $25 would be the max. We'll kind of look at what's what we need to kind of do for the going rate and explore that too, but we won't make any offers until we see what the bids are. But we'll, like solicit people applying.
Yeah,
I think
So if
that
we
makes
can see
sense.
if we can
That's
find
definitely-
anybody.
we should
Yeah.
definitely do that.
Yeah,
Very
it's-
large.
Yeah, and it's part of that calculation, whether we want to absorb it internally or contract it
I
out.
would hit the high school, honestly. Just hit the high school.
So we have
They're all
before,
like
any
information.
questions from any
They don't
additional
work anymore.
questions from the board?
No, no.
Any additional questions from the public or any questions at all from the public? Do we need to do these in different parts or do you want me to loop it all together?
Except Corbo, we should could do that in one motion, right?
So consideration, so I'll make a motion to accept the CoStar's mulching contract from Corbo in the amount of $22,575. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So next up, we have the consideration of advertising, requesting to advertise or authorization to advertise for a mowing bid. I'm going to do that one. I'm going to do it separate. So is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And then next up is the authorization for staff to, advertise seasonal employment. Start the bidding process for seasonal employment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have consideration of a tax appeal settlement agreement for 899 Penn Oak Road. Included in our board packet was the stipulations to settle. There's a lot of whereases and therefores, and the therefores are identifying that we intend and understand and are going to be legally bound by the following settlement. And so I'm assuming that we are authorizing our attorney to accept and to be stipulated by these terms. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. This was a reduction in assessment requested by the property owner and it was negotiated by the school district. You were not involved in the negotiations.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
I have one quick question for Neil. Do you know if this is going to trigger other reevaluations for tax purposes along that street?
There's actually been 2 prior stipulations that this board has approved in recent memory for that street. There are a number of other properties on this street that I believe have pending tax appeals. It seems like the homes on the street were significantly overassessed. If you see what the Board of Assessment did, it cut the assessment by, I think, 35 or 40%, which is
Very
very significant.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, this street, and there are beautiful homes on this street,
Mhm.
have been overassessed historically.
Okay.
Any additional questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to accept and authorize our solicitor to sign the tax appeal settlement agreement for 899 Penn Oak Road. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, I didn't get to oppose.
Sorry.
No one's opposed. Anyone like to abstain?
I'm going to abstain only because I don't know if I have a conflict because we represent Wissahick and School District. I know that's a surprise, but I don't think I have a conflict, but just, I know they're signatories to the agreement, so in an abundance of caution, I will just abstain.
Very good, sir.
We're used to it.
And next up is consideration.
There are law firms in this state.
Next up is consideration of our invoice report for March 11th, 2025. Has everyone gotten an opportunity to review our invoice report? Any questions or comments or concerns for our finance director? Any questions or concerns from the public? Thank you again. Linda, I'd like to make a motion to approve our invoice report for March 11th, 2025. Is there a second? All those in favor?
The board may be interested to know that the assistant finance director actually puts all this together, just became a grandmother this week.
Oh. That's awesome. Anyone?
Are we gonna go, the last meeting, we couldn't have you make your presentation. Are we going to reschedule that? Okay.
I can bring it back the next meeting, yeah. I was on vacation last week, so I was keeping this agenda pretty late for packets.
Okay.
Okay.
If it makes sense, if you feel like you should cover it, then go ahead, but if it's all the same. Yeah. Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, next up is the approval of our minutes from our February 25th, 2025 meeting. Has everyone gotten an opportunity to review them? Anyone have any questions or concerns related to the minutes from our February 2025 meeting?
It's a good meeting.
The long meeting,
It was a lot of fun.
a lot of minutes.
I remember it being a good time.
Thank you, Michelle, for writing down all those minutes.
Shaw's carpal tunnel as a result.
Any questions or concerns or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our February 25th, 2025 meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Included in our board packet is nothing related to our liaison reports, staff updates.
Couple quick ones for you. So a few months ago, the board approved a sidewalks and trails plan to look at walkability strategy through the township. I am pleased to announce that we are going on tour. Jim and his team, along with Sandy, have been doing a tremendous amount of work. So we're about to hit a lot of different boards for this. So tomorrow night we'll be at the EAC. The next week, the Planning Commission. In April, Parks and Rec. And then one of the May meetings, we're hoping to be back here to present all the findings to you all. So look forward to that one. And the other one I want to highlight quickly is, Tessie, thank you for connecting us with Suzanne about the Texaco lot plan. She gave us some great suggestions that we can take to move forward on that. One of the things that we do want to ask the board and probably the public in general for is a name so we can stop referring to it by the old gas station that was there. At a staff meeting earlier, the name Gwynedd Green was kicked around. Sounded very nice. So if you have any suggestions, please pass them along.
The only thing that I'll add is I have still been talking with the representative from the Ambler Rotary who still has an interest in me helping fund some of the projects, so we may want to include them if.
Yeah, I do, are you
but I-
finished?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jenny.
Just noting that, like, we shouldn't commit to a name right now.
It's, so I didn't have thought through your presentation when you made it before. But is this a preliminary plan? Are we thinking that we're going to do more in the future? This is just kind of a get us to the future sort of plan.
Right. So the idea is that this is a year one, then let's see how people are using the park. So let's get it so it's something that's nice to look at when you're driving by. And then if we see people using the park for any kind of specific purposes or walking specific trails or something like that, then we can kind of reevaluate. But after talking to the park board, this sounded like a good place to start and then see what the future brings.
Okay, and I don't mean to overload the park committee like we just mentioned, but if there's nothing there, how are people going to be using the park? And by nothing there, I mean, it doesn't sound like there's going to be any benches or, croquet green or whatever you could imagine. It's just, to me, it's more like this looks pretty as a entry to the township, but.
Agreed. And there was, I think, what, 2 park meetings, Kathy, we talked about this? We had 2 Parks and Rec meetings. And basically there was a lot of thought that Veterans Park has a lot of kind of amenities to do right next door. And that Texaco, being on the corner of so many large roads, was not necessarily a destination in and of itself. It's kind of more like a pass-through area.
Right.
Or something you're maybe noticing as you're driving through, though I think, a lot of us are more focused on the road we're driving through, hopefully. So yeah, it wasn't looked at as a big destination point right now. So if it winds up becoming one, I think then it would be reconsidered.
Yeah. One last thing. So we, back when I guess I was still on the Parks and Rec Board, our liaison, we had talked about, getting rid of that little log cabin and maybe making some improvements. So what I'm wondering is there a strategic plan to like merge, Kathy's saying yes, merge those 2 parks and redo the landscaping perhaps? We had a comment from one of the gentlemen that puts on the Veterans Day celebration that the cherry trees were too obscuring the statue. Anyway, if there's a idea to have a long-range plan for those 2 spaces and merge them together, that would be great if you could tell me that, yes, and that's the answer to my question.
Tessie, we talked a lot about that little hut and what to do. I think eventually we're hoping it would come down, right, John? That's what we talked about. But I think the plan for the Texaco State, we do have to give it a better name, John, is at least, like John said, put something up for now. I mean, we talked about a lot of things, a gazebo, walking through, or pathway through. We've talked about this for over a year.
Okay.
I think this is a good start. I think this is a good way to start it, and comes well within in a good budget, I think, right now for us. I think what John said is how we're all feeling. Let's see what happens. I think, Tessie, we might see people cutting through. Will they cut through it and not go around? That's what I was wondering. And try to get to that walkway, going across to Whole Foods over there.
Mm-hmm.
We're not really sure what people would use it for. Not many people use Veterans Park as it is. So
Correct.
is it, I don't know. So maybe this is step 1, and then we'll look at it again as we go along.
I think what I'm more interested, not so much in making it a park that's a destination, let's go
Right.
there and throw the football, but rather it's in a prominent location. And it would be really nice if it's just spectacularly beautiful. You come down Norristown Road, which I really want to preserve, with the huge setbacks, and you get into the intersection there. It'd be so nice because we lost all the trees with that development on the right-hand side with Whole Foods, et cetera, to have something really pretty there. So
I think that's what we're thinking, right, John? I mean, that's the beginning of it. I mean, John will tell you, I wanted a continuation of the wall. I thought it would pull those 2 pieces together, how it would look. It's going to be behind that utility box, the supports for the pole. It's just not a great spot. It really isn't. And it would push us back pretty far, right, John? When we looked at doing that. I don't know, maybe over time we decide to put the curve the same way that the other side is for Veterans Park. I think for now, this is the best first step.
okay, very good.
Gwinnett Green is a nursing home up the road. Springhouse Green sounds better.
Yeah, Springhouse is the Springhouse intersection.
And Tessie, the only thing I'll add is when we were sitting down and looking at where to even think about putting the trees, it was to leave space to be able to do other things in the future so that it wasn't just, we could say, well, let's just get 50 trees and just, get the whole thing covered. It was, no, let's leave a little room so that there's flexibility in the future. Maybe we do plant more in the future, maybe it becomes something else.
And I think that's great. I had visions of an arch, a fountain with lights, and, no, I'm just kidding. But something that would be a focal point for the township going forward. Maybe we can have a contest.
Yeah, and it became really eye-opening to us. We actually had a portable LED sign test go out there, and it was amazing how badly those telephone poles and the utility boxes block the view. They are right on the perfect corner to where you want to put everything. You have to really go far back to get anything on there. It's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I wasn't involved with all those discussions, so it's good to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any additional staff updates? No? Supervisor comments. Tessie?
Oh, can't think of any. Well, I'm glad that we had a great turnout the last meeting and people were able to express their opinion about the very important situation in the township, the development. And so I'm encouraged that maybe going forward, more people will get involved and give us their input, not in a negative way maybe, but so, now people know to pay attention and maybe that will help with our communication with the community. And I really applaud that. I applaud the staff and this board for participating for that long. So thanks. My hat's off to all the people involved with that.
Me?
Happy almost spring.
Jimmy?
With St. Patrick's Day coming up, I just wish everyone a happy and safe St. Patty's Day.
Bursky? Sorry, Mike?
I'm gonna follow up on something Tessie said. We're going to plan. We're not going to not plan for the future. So the input from the residents is critical, but doing nothing, I don't think is an option for this board. We should, not just with regard to that property, but if we don't plan for the future, we are planning to fail. So we must do something.
I want to echo what Tessie shared as well as what Percy's shared. I think this board is charged not only with planning, but engaging with the public, being transparent about that planning process and being intentional. I think we have goals, and that's kind of why I'm going to say one of the reasons why I value being on the Board of Supervisors, because I think we need to be intentional about planning for a community that I love. Truly. With that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We need to change the placard here.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. I was here last.